This is really, really weird. Look, I don't have a huge amount of time to explain, but I'll try my best. Basically, a few days ago, I was studying for my biology exam. I don't live in the northern hemisphere, so exam season is right around the corner. Unfortunately for me, however, my first exam is in biology, which I hate. It's not that it's hard, and in fact, in my opinion, it's the easiest science. It's just boring, and it takes ages to memorize all the little terms you need to know. Alleles, phenotype, genotype. There are millions of them. But one I was struggling to get was not a term, but a process. Meiosis. I'm sure you all have heard of it. Is when, well, I don't really know, which is exactly why 3 days ago I was on the 10th page of Google looking for a website that would simplify it for me, which is when I found it. www.biology, and I'm blanking out the rest of it, .com. I'll be honest, I've never heard of this site, but at that point I was just desperate for something. I'd already gone back to my science teacher twice asking about it, and I still don't understand. I mean, it's not like I can ask a third time. That would be embarrassing. Not like I can ask my friends either. I'm supposed to be the smart one in the group. English, history, every other class I excel at, which is why I found myself reading through that site at 11 p.m. on a Sunday night. Anyway, I stopped reading the big block of text on the site after a minute. All the information was crap. There were no examples, and it barely related to meiosis whatsoever. I was already in a pissed off mood, but this just topped it off. So you can imagine what I wrote when a box came up asking for feedback. 2 paragraphs insulting the site and the creator later, I looked at my watch and saw that it was probably time for bed. The studying could wait. When I woke up in the morning and opened my laptop to see what I had written the previous night, with a little icon below it saying submitted, I was surprised. I don't usually get that annoyed, and looking back on the situation from the next morning, I saw that it was really kind of dumb. But after I had showered, brushed my teeth, eaten breakfast, and was on the bus to school, I had forgotten about it. Fast forward to my library period, and I was reminded of it with a new email from MJ. I'm also blanking out the rest of this email. At gmail.com. Who the hell is MJ? I thought to myself when I clicked on it. The email itself had no subject, but it read, "Hey, thanks for your criticism about my biology website. I'll improve it over the next week." Really, I will. Actually, I will send you another email when my improvements utilizing your feedback start. I don't have anything to do today, so I'll start right away. Yours sincerely, MJ. Weird, I said to myself, shrugging it off. I figured whoever MJ was would spam me with emails for a little while and then stop, and both of us would move on. To be honest, I kind of felt bad for the guy. I took my anger out on him and his website, just because I was having trouble studying. Just like the morning, I forgot about my encounter with an internet stranger when I got another email that night from this mysterious MJ. It was a link back to the biology website, except now instead of a couple of text blocks about something vaguely to do with meiosis, it was just a photo. Not even a strange photo, not at first. It was a picture of an interstate, taken from presumably a dashcam. However, upon closer inspection, I saw that on the big sign above the highway was a sign for the next turnoff. The turnoff had some text written above it, which was, I leaned in, the name of my town. I let out an audible gasp. What the hell is going on here? I thought to myself. There's no way that some random tracked me down and came after me over a comment I left on his crappy biology website, is there? I mean, I know there are some strange people online, but I don't know. And stupidly, I didn't tell my parents. Somehow in my head, I justified it as a hoax. It's just Photoshop, I thought. It's impossible to track me. I'm pretty sure I was using my VPN. In fact, I probably did the worst thing by just carrying on as usual and going to bed. The next day was a Tuesday, and like every other Tuesday, I woke up wanting to bite the end of a shotgun. Math, science, and economics, my 3 worst classes, all took place on Tuesday. However, I somehow managed to rally myself and made it to the bus on time. At school, it was another boring day until halfway through the 3rd period. I left economics to go for a walk around the school and maybe camp out a toilet stall for 15 minutes and look at my phone when I saw it. Another email from MJ. Again, no subject, and the only text was a link to that damn biology website. I sighed and silently prayed to God that whatever MJ had put up on that website wasn't taken from inside my house or anything. It wasn't, luckily, but it wasn't reassuring by any means. It was a photo taken from atop a hill on the south side of my fairly small town with the caption, "Guess who's in town?" The thing is, even though my town isn't exactly big, it is very spread out, and the hill he had clearly taken the photo from only looked down on a dozen or so houses, one of which, obviously, being mine. I was shocked. Was that coincidence or intentional that my house was in the frame? Is this person just a determined troll, or is he actually going to do something malicious? That's it. I had to tell someone. Walking back into economics, I went over to my friend Oliver's computer. Both my laptop and phone were now out of charge, and asked him to look up the biology-turned-stalker website for me. He gave me some weird looks, but I convinced him to enter the URL code, and after typing it up, Oliver's expression turned from curiosity to confusion. The website was blank, like nothing was ever there. I felt like a damn idiot after that. Turning to Oliver, I wasn't quite sure what to say. Look, dude, I know there was a photo there. Yeah, whatever. I know you might not like me saying this, but you should probably stop smoking for a bit. Take a tolerance break. It's messing with your head. No, this isn't something I dreamed up while high. I swear, man. Okay, whatever. I need to study. And with that, Oliver plugged his headphones back in and went to drawing graphs about the demand and supply of bricks after an increase of the price of clay. Yeah, see why I hate economics? Anyway, I think my interaction with Oliver made me much more hesitant to tell anyone about it. While laying in bed that night, waiting for sleep to come, I figured that if there was any more photos close to my house, then I'd tell my parents and the police. I just have to show them on my phone or laptop, because it seemed that any other device couldn't load the page for some reason. It was really weird. I tested it on the family PC, and even on my mother's iPad, and neither loaded anything when I typed in the URL code. It's not like I typed it in wrong. I made sure every key was correct. In any other situation, it would be really cool, making it so that only certain devices can access a website. Somehow I managed to get to sleep that night. Wednesday unfolded very similar to Tuesday, so I'll spare you the crap details. Just like on Monday and Tuesday, I got another email from MJ in the late afternoon. This time when I opened the link, I wasn't sure exactly what I was looking at. It was a gray surface with the number 60 on it. I was confused. Part of me wishes that I stayed confused. But only half a minute later, I was filled with dread. My litter box is gray, and my house number on my street is 60. MJ had found my house. I can't go back home now. I think I'll go to the police. He knows where I live, and I know he wants to do me harm. You don't drive to my town just to say hi. It's in the middle of nowhere. I don't think that going to the police would do me much, though. He knows where I live. He probably knows everything about me. As I said, I can't go home. What should I do? I have no clue. I'm shaking and so scared. I need help. I'll update if I'm able to. The happiest couple I've ever met, the couple to give hope to anyone who didn't believe in love, came crashing down from their happy, cloudless blue sky. And it all began with an old, bitter woman. I arrived at JC's house 5 p.m. sharp. She's always obsessing with time, questioning why you're a minute late or a minute early, as if she's a detective and you're in her interrogation room. A young woman with pitch black hair, dark clothing, a nose ring, and a few tattoos to go with it all. Her home decorated not too differently from herself, with pumpkins sitting on the porch in September, black wind chimes, and a very welcoming rug at the doorstep that reads, Leave now. I felt special being the only person she trusted. Still, it took me a few knocks and even a reluctant ring of the doorbell to get her to answer. Hey, I began, ending the awkward stare down she always initiated when that door opened. Isaac, she said, smiling. How are you? Good. Yourself? She took a moment to trace the floor with her left foot. Good. JC and I had planned a movie night. Well, as long as the movie wasn't too long, as she never allows anyone, even me, inside her home after 9:30 p.m. My nostrils were introduced to the scent of a fresh batch of cinnamon cookies. I had hoped that they were for us, but JC brought back a bowl of popcorn and soda for the movie instead, which was fine. I certainly wasn't going to complain, and then end up losing her trust for the next 2 decades. The movie ended. We thought Halloween 2 was okay. I gave myself a little tour while JC went upstairs to find another movie. I was glad she was willing to watch another, that she was beginning to open up and let her friends back into her life. I guess the boredom from all the loneliness she's been experiencing the past few years finally got to her. My eye caught a picture framed above a fireplace of JC and her ex-boyfriend, Tyler. No one knows what happened between them. All we know is that one day they were together and the next day they weren't. After the breakup, Tyler simply disappeared and no one's seen him since. And the aftermath shows. It shows in JC's eyes. Saw 4? JC waved a DVD from atop the stairs, awaiting my response. Sure. Somehow, over and despite the gore of Saw 4, she slowly drifted away into a deep sleep. I wasn't really paying much attention to the movie anyway, so that was fine, and it was about time for me to leave soon. I made my way over to the kitchen for a glass of water. I noticed the time, 9:15 p.m. I thought I better get going soon, even if JC wasn't going to wake up in the next 15 minutes. I told myself that I'd wake her before I left, out of respect for her rules. I noticed a tray of cinnamon cookies on the counter and figured she wouldn't notice one missing anyway. I looked down the hallway before turning the sink on to see JC still asleep. I didn't want to make too much of a ruckus washing my hands. But it was not the sound of running water that woke her up. It was my scream. As I washed my hands, I made out the face of a man in the window in front of the sink. I jumped back in shock, with JC already running into the kitchen with questions. What? She demanded to know. Call the cops, I said. Someone tried to break into your house. I saw him through the window by the sink. What did he look like? I don't know. Definitely a man, though. I think he was white. She burst out in sudden laughter. No more movies tonight, Isaac. Time to go, she said in a condescending tone. She didn't believe me, or she wasn't taking it seriously. I'm not leaving you here. You're not staying here alone. I'll be fine. Not happening, I sternly interrupted. JC finally noticed the time. Her expression suddenly turned serious, and she uncrossed her arms. Oh, no. Isaac, you have to go. You have to go now. I poked my head to the side, looking out the kitchen. I saw the same man, through the living room window this time. Damn! Call the cops, he's right there! JC looked back. She saw him too. A very loud and violent bang against the door rumbled throughout the house. She ran for the front door to make sure it was locked, except she actually ran for the front door so I wouldn't look through the peephole. Move, what are you doing? We gotta see this guy's face so we can describe him, I said. Isaac. What? Move! Isaac, please. Confusion hit me. Why won't you move, JC? Tears ran down her face, followed by trails of black eyeshadow. She seemed hopeless, like she had just given up, like she was finally ready to tell me something. Isaac, do you remember that old woman? The one Tyler and I... She covered her right hand with the sleeve of her sweater and dried her face. The one me and Tyler visited? Yeah, okay, what about her? JC and Tyler were as open-minded as they come. They dipped their toes into diverse pools of knowledge in religion, culture, science, you name it. They studied Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, and anything else that sparked their interest. Which is why, at the request of a former friend, they decided to meet with a woman who claimed to possess certain abilities. A very old, serious, gray-haired woman whose shoulders almost met the back of her neck. This woman lived up in a mountain, in absolute isolation. Although open-minded and always willing to listen, JC and Tyler couldn't help but laugh at the woman, who claimed to be one of the last people on Earth who knew how to practice real witchcraft. The woman did not react mercifully at their mocking, and supposedly proved to JC and Tyler that she was in fact very real. It was a running joke that JC would tell us from time to time, even when Tyler left. They broke up immediately after meeting that old woman, but no one seriously thought that was their reasoning. JC. She looked up at me, still leaning against the door. What about the woman? What the hell does she have to do with anything that's happening right now? The tears started again. Then another very, very loud bang against the door. It was so strong that it rattled the locks and even shook some picture frames on the wall out of place. Oh my God. Okay, JC, move. Just move now. I gently moved her away from the door so that I could see through the hole. Isaac, please. I saw the stuff of nightmares. A man on the ground, standing on all fours. That is, standing on his legs and hands, his crooked head looking up at the door, shifting fast, shifting inhumanely fast. His eyes were pitch black, like JC's hair, and he was completely naked, with his ribcage poking against his skin. He was standing so close to the door that I was able to see every little detail. Then he, or it, opened its mouth to reveal cat-like teeth. I jumped back as it began to bang its head against the door again. I looked at JC, awaiting an explanation. She just looked back at me, as if expecting me to figure it out myself, like I was supposed to know. Then she ran to the kitchen, and she came back with the tray of cinnamon cookies she had baked earlier. She placed her hand on the doorknob while using the other to carry the tray. They're still his favorite. What are you doing? Don't open that door. She opened the door and walked outside, closing it behind herself. I looked through the peephole, then ran to the living room to get a better look through the window. She was feeding it the cookies and petting it on the head. It rubbed against her legs. She kissed it on its forehead while it consumed everything she placed in front of it. Then, in a sight that made me jump back from the window, it suddenly ran off into the woods, moving incredibly fast. I just stared at JC as she walked back inside. She froze by the staircase, still waiting for me to say something. By then I had figured it out, and I let her know that I had. Tyler always did like those cookies. About 2 weeks ago, I took some buddies of mine out on my yacht in the Gulf of Mexico for some shipwreck diving. We had mapped a couple of sites online and set sail. We counted on an overnight trip since we had a few nice wrecks we wanted to visit and had plenty of beer. My yacht has a couple bunks, but is nothing spectacular. Anyway, I'm not much of a diver, not like Jack and Chuck who are experts. Danny was like me. He was certified but didn't really do the deep stuff. Phil was in a league of his own. He once showed up at a dive I was doing at about 30 feet with nothing but a snorkel. That's basically the who's who. The first couple wrecks went fine. They were only about 40 feet down. Phil and Chuck found holes to go in, but I didn't do the whole go inside thing. I won't go in anywhere that is enclosed. Call me lame. Anyway, we're on our way out to deeper water, on our way to a nice wreck, when I catch something on the sonar. Could be a wreck. We consult our shipwreck map. I don't see this one on the map, Chuck said. Uncharted? Jack got extremely excited. After some more investigation, we figured it was likely this was indeed an uncharted wreck. We estimated it was about 120 feet down. Too far for me. Not for Chuck and Jack, though. They were already starting to gear up. Careful now. Make sure you take new tanks, Worrywart me says. They'd already had a couple beers. They gave me the usual, we'll be fine, blah answer and dove in. They were gone for a while. It must be a really good one. About an hour and a half later, they popped back up, swimming to the back of the boat. How was it? Danny asked, helping Chuck up. It was fine, Chuck returned. It was cool, Jack added. Now, you guys don't know Chuck and Jack, but like I said, they were experts. On a brand new dive, especially something like a wreck, you couldn't shut them up about it when they came back. You guys were gone a while, I added. Was starting to get worried. A lot to see, Jack said. I was waiting for some details and they never came. I helped Jack up into the boat. Thanks, Daniel, he said as he started taking his stuff off. This was the first warning. He's Dan, I said, pointing to Danny. We also never called him Daniel. Only his mom still called him that. Jack just chuckled. Oh yeah. Duh. You sure you didn't run out of oxygen down there? Phil chided, having noticed the name mishap. After they changed, we went back to getting drunk. I grabbed Chuck's favorite beer out of the cooler and tossed it to him. He caught it and stared at it for a minute, like he was examining it. Phil and Danny were howling with laughter with Jack about some joke, so they didn't see this exchange. Chuck had a look on his face, that he didn't want the beer, but he opened it anyway. He took a big sip. That hits the spot, he said. That was a lie. Listen, I'm no Sherlock Holmes, but I'm observant. Possibly observant to the point of being paranoid, and something was starting to get me paranoid. When Chuck took that sip, I could see it in his face that he didn't like it. He'd been drinking that one brand of beer since he was 16. Something was up with him. I was on edge the rest of the night until everyone started passing out from the drinking. I was nervous and didn't sleep much. I woke up a few times. Every time I woke up, Jack and Chuck were down by the stern, the back of the boat. They seemed to be just standing there looking down at the water. I woke up first, and sure enough, Jack and Chuck were where they'd been all night. They heard me and moved like they were just hanging out. They sat down nearby. Morning, Chuck said. Hey, we need to show you that wreck down there, he added before I could even reply. Yeah, you'd like it. You gotta see it, Jack added. I'll get the gear ready. No thanks. I motioned for them to sit down. It's way too early. Plus, it's too deep for me. Not my thing. It's so easy, Chuck said. You're gonna love it. Gonna love what? Phil asked from behind me. The wreck down there. It's amazing, Jack said. Ready to go? Chuck asked. Hell yeah, Phil said. He started getting his diving stuff together. Now, wait a minute, I start, trying to stall. I didn't want Phil to go down there. Now don't worry about it, Phil starts. It's only 1:20, that's nothing. We'll be back in no time for breakfast. I tried to stall some more, but everyone was already geared up. Danny woke up at this point as well. Going out already? He asked. Want to come? Chuck asked. It's so damn awesome, Jack adds. Danny declines. Come on, it's Uncharted. We're the first to find it. Get your name in the history books, Chuck says. This whole exchange is another red flag. They both know we don't do the deep stuff like that. They always ask if we want to go to be nice, but after the initial no thanks, they back off. They respect that we know our limits. While they finish getting ready, I noticed something else with Chuck. He's using his left hand for everything. He's right-handed. Thinking back to the previous night when I tossed him his beer, he caught it with his left hand, and I hadn't noticed at the time. Come on, quit wasting time with these bitches and let's go, Phil says. He jumps in. Once they're all gone, I immediately started in on Danny. Dan, did you notice anything different about those two last night? I asked. What do you mean? Jack and Chuck seemed different. They were gone a lot longer than normal, and when they came back, they seemed off. I mean, he called me Daniel. Yeah, that was kind of weird. Plus, Chuck looked like it was torture to down his beer I tossed him. It was like he hated it, and he's been drinking it for 20 years. Yeah, now that you mention it, Jack was drinking something different too. He was drinking that hard cider. He hates that fruity, floofy stuff. And Chuck is using his left hand for everything too, I noticed. He's a righty. They really wanted us to go down there, too, Danny added. Yeah, they didn't respect our limits like they usually do, and now Phil is down there with them. I mean, what do you think it could be down there? I literally have no idea, but there's something going on. We kind of stand there and ponder for a few seconds. Wait a minute, Danny said. He walked over to where we had the equipment. There's only one tank missing here from the full tank rack. That would have been the one Phil took. Jack and Chuck didn't take a new tank. What? I'm confused for a second. According to our inventory, Jack and Chuck didn't take a new tank this morning. They're still using the same one from last night. Look, the empty pile over there only has 2 tanks. The ones they used before diving here yesterday. Oh my God, I said. And they were gone a long time yesterday. Right? I mean, the tanks from yesterday had to be either empty or at least critical, Danny said. So they're either drowning right now or they don't require oxygen for some reason anymore, Danny finished. When they get back, they're going to try and get us to go down. Count on it. And I think they're going to try and make us if we say no again, I added. We needed a plan. Almost 2 hours later, they resurfaced, Jack and Chuck very much alive, despite their seemingly empty tanks. Danny and I try to act normal by helping them out. I hope to God Phil would be normal. You guys need to dive down there, he said dryly. There was no personality in his voice. Oh, hang on a sec, I tell him when he takes his mask off. Huge eyelash right by your eye there. I pretend to wipe it away. This was a lie. The real reason I did this was to look at his eyes. I wanted to see if they were the same. They weren't. They had been a deep, dark brown before. Now they were almost sky blue. I got intensively nervous. They had gotten Phil as well. Listen, we just want you guys to see this wreck, Jack said. It's 1 in a million, Phil added. I think back and I couldn't think of a time Phil was so somber and flat. He was that friend everyone has, always the jokester, always high on life for some reason. Please, just come down with us there. You're gonna love it, Chuck said. Too deep, I said, shaking my head. You know Danny and I don't like going below 50. We've been certified for 5 years now, and we've never gone below 50. That was a test. And after those 5 years, isn't it time to graduate? Chuck asked. He failed the test. We'd been certified for 10 years. Come on, Dan, Phil chided. You really need to see this wreck. No way. You know my asthma prevents me from going that deep, Danny returned. We'll be right there with you. We're trained divers. We know what to do in emergencies, Jack said. Danny didn't have asthma. Danny and I shoot each other looks. This must have tipped them off that we knew something was up. We're going down to that wreck, Phil says sharply. I've never heard him use such a grave tone with his voice. So angry. Just come with us, please. Don't make us drag you down there, Chuck said. Once you get down there, Jack added, it's so much better when you come back up. The 3 of them start to converge on us. I'm not going, Danny says. Oh, yes, you are, Jack says. He and Phil grab Danny while Chuck comes towards me. Okay, I'll go, I said, giving in. Chuck kept coming, but he slowed his pace, apparently pleased that I agreed. I turned around and reached for a new oxygen tank as Chuck came up behind me. I grab one and spin around as fast as I can and swing the tank as hard as I can, knocking the ever-loving hell out of Chuck's head. The sound it makes as it connects is just absolutely disgusting, and his head tilts fiercely to the right with a sickening crunch. The neck had to be broken. Phil and Jack are trying to force Danny to get dressed as I rush up behind Jack and swing hard again at his left knee. It hyperextended and broke with an equally disturbing crunch as he howled in pain. Phil rushed me and tackled me to the floor of the boat, and we wrestled around on the ground. Why can't you just come down to the wreck? He asked, insanity in his voice. He then grunts loudly in pain and stands up. As he turns around, I see my steak knife from the galley stuck in his back, all the way to the hilt. Judging from its position, it's probably in his heart. Danny got him good. He reaches behind him and yanks it out. Holding it, he starts advancing towards Danny, blood now pouring out of his mouth. After a few steps, he drops the knife and falls to a knee. A second later, he fell forward, hopefully dead. Jack, broken leg and all, is crawling on the ground near their diving equipment. "Put on your suits and dive down to the wreckage with me," he says angrily. "They just don't quit, do they?" "No," I said as I picked up my oxygen tank. I raised it high over my head, holding it vertically. Nobody is going down there anymore. I brought it down on his head as hard as I could. I can't unsee what happened to his head. That was our plan all along if Phil had changed. Danny would resist, I would feign compliance to catch them off guard, then hope for the best. We checked Chuck and he was also dead. I'm no doctor, but his neck was definitely broken. There was also a huge skin tear on his head from the impact that was bleeding profusely with a thick purplish goo. All three of them had this purple goo for blood. Whatever happened to them down there, whether they were still themselves or if they were copied like pod people or what, whatever was down there changed them. Danny and I now had to explain the three dead things on my boat once we got back to land. The thing was, I recorded the entire scuffle on my phone. I docked so it was standing up and I started a video as soon as the three of them returned. The entire event was recorded. I wasn't sure what I was more scared of, that they're going to charge us with murder since Jack's head smash was no longer self-defense, or that they were going to see our friends were potentially no longer human and we were going to get black-bagged. Luckily, we didn't get black-bagged, but were still placed under arrest after the video was viewed pending the investigation. We were called out of our jail cell and taken to an interrogation room where men in suits were waiting. I was surprised they didn't seem to care that I was on video smashing a defenseless man's head with an oxygen tank. They cared more about the goo and the wreckage site itself. We told them literally everything we knew, the things we noticed that were different about them when they came back, both physically and personality-wise, their absolute insistence that we visit the wreckage site, and the goo that they appeared to have for blood. They grilled us hard. I truly thought they'd be pulling out a black bag any second. "Okay, gentlemen," one of them finally said. "Listen very carefully. There was a diving accident involving alcohol in an uncharted shipwreck in the Gulf of Mexico, resulting in the drowning of 3 of your friends. Due to their reckless behavior in entering an unknown shipwreck, their bodies are likely unrecoverable at this time. Doing so would put the lives of rescuers at risk. Both of you must hand over your phones immediately. Also, I'm afraid your boat is being impounded indefinitely by the United States government. Ample reimbursement will be provided. Also," the other guy added, "we're placing a permanent gag order on this event. It is not to be talked about with anyone. I'm not threatening you, but just remember, there's always somebody watching." We were then free to leave. Despite the gag order, I need to tell someone about this, which is why I'm here. I don't know what was down there at that shipwreck, but whatever it was, it's probably still there. Not only that, it was somewhat easy to find. That's the scary part. Thank you for making it this far. I'd like to encourage you to subscribe if you like my content. If you'd like to follow me and want to be involved in what I'm doing / talk to me, follow me on Twitter or Instagram. If you'd like an offline experience, check out the podcast, The Midnight Podcast. And if you're at all inclined, I've got some merch out there to be purchased if you'd like to support the channel. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next video.